Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regularly scheduled Homelessness and Poverty Committee. Good afternoon, everyone. Our apologies for starting late, but Mr. Rue and myself are in another committee that ran late, so that's why we're getting a slightly late start. Thank you all for your patience. I'd like to welcome Mr. Rue, Monica Rodriguez, and Mike Bonin. We have quorum, and with that, we will call this meeting to order. And so, colleagues, I'd like to take all items first. We're going to run into a quorum issue because we have some members who must leave at a certain time. So let's hear all the comments, both on all the items and general public comment. If there are no objections, we'll do that first, and then we'll go right into the items. So let's start with Wayne Spindler. And you have general public comment and then all the items. So you get 3 minutes total, 1 minute for general and 2 minutes for all the other items combined.
That's right. So, let's get to the State of Homelessness Emergency Aid Program. Another lie. Yes, right now, Nuri Martinez is on AM 640 KFI lying her little ass off right now. Well, actually, a rather large ass. So she lying her ass off right now. That's why she can't be here. Number 2, HHH. I'm here to bitch about the money you stole. Where is the audit of the money? The answer is the FBI has it. Ding, 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 ding. Correct. Yes, and that's what you got now. Now we're going to have a summit on poverty with key stakeholders. The place, Skid Row. The time, January 3rd, 2094. We're going to hold the poverty summit. That's right. It ain't never going to happen. That's right. Monica not going to go to that meeting. No. Nobody here goes to Skid Row. That you drive through Skid Row. And, of course, recently, some of you have upgraded your cars to unbreakable windows, I hear, because you've been having a little problem with guys going, I want some money, I want some housing, Monica. And then Monica goes, no hablo inglés.
You need to stay with the items.
That's right, well, she don't. Then we get to the analysis of policies to address homelessness. Well, your policy is lies, and more lies, and money laundering, and campaign fraud. That's right. Mike Bonin understands what all that shit's about. That's why he don't wear a tie.
You have 1 minute for general public comment.
That's right. So the general comment is, you guys are still fucking up after the FBI raid of Jose Weezer, Mike Fuhrer, and the DWP. You still don't get it yet, do you? You're down looking at your phones. Mommy Monica and David Rue and Bonin ain't paying attention. I might say something that you might want to hear and just digest into your little brains, but the staff's looking at me because the staff knows what's going to happen. I found something today in the garbage. Yes, that's why I smell like I do. I've been crawling in your garbage around here for 4 years now, and today I found something good. Always remember to destroy the evidence before the rats go in the garbage and take it with their little teeth and pull it out of there. You'll hear about it Monday. Bunch of fucking fuck up.
That's it. For some people, this is their first committee hearing. And I apologize I didn't warn you in advance for what you just heard. But a few individuals attend every committee hearing and every council session, and they express their First Amendment right to its possible negative fullest each time, and that's what we have to sit through sometimes. So I apologize for that language on their behalf. So I don't think Mike Fuhrer is here, but someone put his name on a comment, so we'll move right past that one. And we'll go straight to Craig R. Craig R., who has general public comment in items 1, 2, 3, and 5. No, I want to apologize for the foul, uncouth language that folks who weren't prepared to hear that had to sit through because it's uncouth and really unbecoming of anyone who's actually a civilized human being. You have 2 minutes for your multiple comment items.
Thank you. Yeah, item 1, the Homeless Strategy Committee report relative to the heat funds. Be interested in that. Hope they can explain why in this latest round of $124 million that the mayor's received, he's only planning to spend $7 million of it in Skid Row. I guess because we got $20 million last year, even though none of that has appeared on the street with any efficacy. It's hard to figure, especially since he calls his new situation, his new branding situation, confronting the crisis. What? After 10 years from being inside this building and seeing homelessness grow exponentially, he just noticed it's a crisis and he just decided to confront it? Eric. The Triple H, and number 2, the Triple H Administrative Oversight Committee, why no audit? Where'd the money go? Why no significant units open yet? What's up with that? You know, and we know you guys got to get the money to be better administered in the future before you ask for the next $1.2 billion, which I know you're planning already. Number 3, a summit on poverty must be nice. The East Hollywood Neighborhood Council, huh? Well, you know, if we had, Skid Row had a neighborhood council and we hadn't been fucked out of it by the traitors on the city council and their electronic voting and that crap, maybe we could have we could put on a doozy of a summit on poverty and its causes. We're experts on that in Skid Row. And 5.
Now it's general public comment.
Thanks again.
You're welcome.
Now 5 is a motion by Bonnet and O'Farrell. Oh, that's you. Relative to the monthly status report on the implementation of safe parking program in the city, including the number of operational lots, a successful rate of local service providers in recruiting clients for the lots, and the number of people currently being served. Heard rumbling behind me there. Currently being served. And I noticed there was no community impact statement. Well, I've got a community impact statement for you. It's fucked up. It's really fucked that you've got 8502 re-upping it every 6 months, harassing people, and what you should be doing is changing the basic law so it is not illegal to sleep in your car.
Mike Greenspan, you have 1 minute for
Thanks again.
general public comment and 2 minutes for items 1, 2, and 6. 2 minutes for the items and 1 minute for general.
Okay. Mike Greenspan. Now, let us talk about item 1. And it says funding recommendations. Well, you know me, I'm that stick in the mud. Yes, it's time to put the axe to something. If I were the governor, I'd pull out the blue pencil, and yes, the good old Bruin football team budget would be getting the axe. Great source of funding. We start out with losing Coach Chip Kelly. There's $3 million right there. I don't know how much the assistants get, but let me tell you, when we bust that piñata, then we could actually do something. Not symbolically say we care, and now let's tax you to death, but actually do something. Now, Measure HHH, I was never for it. I even did an ad, and in the ad I said, no, 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 Mr. Wesson, not another tax. Taxes are to Herb Wesson what affairs are to Newt Gingrich. Neither seen one they don't like of their favorite categories. And I got into an argument before the election with somebody out there in Mike Bonnen's district, Susie Williams, who performed at Bill Rosenthal's celebration of life. And she said, oh, but the funds will be watched and monitored. Believe that, and I'll sell you a bridge in Brooklyn. Are they being watched and monitored? I don't think so. And I've got to be careful. Last time I was in front of this committee, I mentioned the homeless people over there in Nuri's district, over there at the Marvin Browdy Center. So what happened? Before the April meeting, you guys cleared it out. Now there are 5 storefronts there. Wow, we got one copy shop, not copy, copy shop to copy things. Obviously, that's a great place for some homeless support services. We've already got water in there. Why don't we put plumbing in so at least they can get some showers over there, support services.
1 minute for general public comment.
Okay. All right. Now, we've got this problem of homelessness, and I guess people have said there's going to be more of these bond measures. After all, can't we first see what we do with the $1.2 billion that's a license to waste? Yes, it's time to have the governor take his blue pencil and find the UCLA football budget. Because why spend a bunch of money on a bunch of losers when we could maybe help turn the tide around with a winning proposition and spend the money at a higher and better use? Now that 8502 that somebody mentioned, the practice field for the Bruins will be a great place to put the vehicles because they're not going to win anyway. They'll start losing next month. So why don't we at least park these vehicles over there on that practice field? Thank you.
Thank you. We have Chris Hommenberg, 1 minute for general public comment and 1 minute for item number 5.
Good morning. My name is Chris Hommenberg. I'm a staff attorney with Public Counsel's Homelessness Prevention Project and a member of Koreatown K-Town for All. I do a lot of work with folks who are, as my job title would suggest, people who are about to lose their homes. I also do a lot of ticketing work, a lot of work to try to prevent people from losing their cars as well. So I wanted to speak specifically to the safe parking programs. I live in the Koreatown neighborhood, and as some of you know, there's a successful safe parking program there. There's also a very successful one in Councilmember Bonin's district that I have sent clients to who have been evicted and lost their homes due to economic reasons. People who do my work are recognize that folks who are about to face economic eviction due to loss of income, loss of jobs, inability to find employment, recognize that when individuals are forced out of their homes, one of the first things that they're typically...
1 more minute.
Thank you. Some of the things that they're almost always going to lack is proper registration, driver's license, insurance. They're going to have excessive parking tickets, traffic infractions, things of that nature. So as you consider consider the safe parking programs, I'd really like to suggest that you consider marrying those programs to like the City Attorney's HEART program, the CAP program, and provide some more funding for the CAP program because people are not able to pay off the parking tickets, even 60 or 40% of it. And also there's existing infrastructure in place to connect those programs to the CES program and the legal services program, legal services that are throughout LA County. So I'd really suggest doing that to really make add a lot of punch to those programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy Turk, 1 minute for comment on item number 1. And you'll be followed by Axel Mayorga.
Good afternoon. I'm Amy Turk, the Chief Innovation Officer at Downtown Women's Center. I'm here today with the Providers Alliance. We're a collaborative of about 80 organizations working to address homelessness. My colleague, Elizabeth Eastland, will provide a comprehensive strategy that we have created to address women's homelessness and women experiencing domestic violence. And this pairs well with the strategies already created through Measure H and through the city. And we're very concerned that there's been a 13% increase of women experiencing homelessness, and that 8% of the folks in the demographic survey reported that they're fleeing, that they've become homeless due to fleeing domestic violence. And so we've provided some solutions here, and we're happy to meet with your offices individually to talk through it further. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex Mayorga, followed by Beth Ann Falstad.
Good afternoon. He's going to speak in English. I'm in Spanish. I'm going to translate.
Okay.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Axel. Soy de Honduras. Estoy habitando en Casa Libre, aquí en Los Ángeles, una casa de bajos recursos para jóvenes inmigrantes. ¿Sigo? Salimos de nuestros países con la promesa a veces de ayudar a nuestra familia y hacer nuestro futuro aquí en este país, poder ayudar a la ciudadanía, pero nuestra casa después de los 19 años no tenemos hacia dónde ir, entonces se lo hace muy difícil dónde estar habitando aquí en Los Ángeles.
He's like, good afternoon. My name is Axel. I am from Honduras. I'm currently living in Casa Libre, which is a youth shelter, which supports us with resources, educational resources. Many of us had to flee our homelands because of violence or because we want to help our families. We are in a situation that once we turn 19 years old, we don't have a place to live, and he's advocating for resources for youth his age.
Continue, since it's translation. Yeah.
Okay.
Another minute, yeah.
No?
We're good?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Beth Ann Falstad will be followed by Elizabeth Eastland.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Beth Ann Falstad. I started a nonprofit called The Building Community. I'm working with a group of residents in permanent supportive housing, and we've developed plans for a sustainable, transitional housing village with support for Skid Row. And we made models and drawings, and we've been working with architects, engineers, construction managers. And we came to have an event on Thursday here at City Hall on the 4th floor. I invited every council member's team and visited every office twice, and was disappointed that no one came. We have a great idea, and it's really creative, and these guys that are with me are really excited about it and invested. And I'm just asking for a little more attention, a little more response, and if there's any suggestions that you have for me, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. You had last Thursday?
Yes, in the media room on the 4th floor.
In the media room on the 4th floor. So Thursdays, council doesn't meet, so for the most part, we're all in our districts that day. So we can have a sort of an offline conversation about setting it up again so that more people can attend and learn about your organization.
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Elizabeth Eastland, followed by Jasmine Tobar, or Yasmin. Sure. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Eastland. I'm the Executive Director of Rainbow Services. We're a domestic violence organization in San Pedro. I'm also the chair of the city's Domestic Violence Alliance, and because I don't have enough to do, oversee the Domestic Violence Caucus for the Provider Alliance to End Homelessness. As Amy Turk shared, we have created this letter that has an overview of some of our concerns about the increase in homelessness amongst women and amongst survivors of domestic violence, but it also outlines numerous strategies that we feel are effective in addressing this issue. This year, the persons fleeing domestic violence make up the same percentage of the homeless population as veterans do, and yet survivors don't often get the same amount of recognition or resources as veterans. So we submit this letter, and we hope to be able to meet with each of your offices, and I look forward to seeing you on Friday, Councilwoman Rodriguez. Thanks.
Thank you. We look forward to those meetings. Yasmin Tobar will be followed by Jerry Jones.
Good afternoon. My name is Jasmine Tovar, and I am a social worker for the Salvadoran American Leadership and Educational Fund. For nearly 24 years, we have served an immigrant population, just like my family who fled our U.S.-backed civil war in El Salvador. Now again, we're seeing the consequences of U.S. failed policies affecting the region, which has resulted in political turmoil and violence in our homelands. We're seeing an influx of asylum seekers reaching our borders. A large percentage of these asylum seekers are children under the age of 18 fleeing violence. SALEV has been supporting asylum seekers in Tijuana. We have been bringing delegations of support. One of the shelters that is close to my heart is Casa Inca, a migrant youth shelter in Tijuana. Casa Inca at one time housed 45 minors, many who had lost parents due to violence in Central America and Mexico. The youngest unaccompanied minor we served was 12 years old. Many of these youth are orphaned and do not have any family in the U.S. Once these youth turn 18, many of these youth end up experiencing homelessness. There are limited resources for migrant youth. Places like Casa Libre are vital to ensure a good transition from detention to their new lives in the U.S. I am in support of item 6, and I believe Los Angeles City and the county can be the leader in this nation and serving UACs with dignity and respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Jerry Jones, followed by Jocelyn Duarte.
Good afternoon. I'm Jerry Jones with I'm the staff director for the Provider Alliance to End Homelessness. I want to echo my support for the Domestic Violence Caucus of our coalition and to thank this committee for helping to lead a process on how to spend this $124 million that Sacramento has sent down. We were very active in lobbying for this money. We met with Senators Durazo and Mitchell and Portantino and Allen and Assemblywoman Rivas and O'Donnell and dozens of staff meetings in Sacramento. So we worked very hard in collaboration with the big city mayors to win this money, and it's so important to us that this committee have a deliberative process to figure out how to spend it. It's, as I'm sure you all have calculated as well, this is more money on an annual basis than Triple H, and we had a very extensive process on how to set priorities there. So we want to work with this committee as organizations on the front lines to make those priorities as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Jocelyn Duarte, followed by Laura Natoli.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Jocelyn Duarte, and I'm the Executive Director of the Salvadoran American Leadership and Educational Fund. For 24 years, my organization has advocated for the Central American community that resides here in the city of Los Angeles. And as many of you know, our community has been under attack by the Trump administration with his anti-hateful, anti-immigrant rhetoric. We have experienced heightened levels of attacks against our community, especially here in Los Angeles. SALEF and our community partners, some that join me here today, have led humanitarian, medical, and legal delegations down to the border. We know that there are a significant number of unaccompanied minors currently in detention. Approximately 10,000 minors are being held in these federal detention centers, and many of these youth, like Axel, will come here to Los Angeles. Upon release, many of these youth will need vital resources such as medical, legal, and housing. Housing being one of the most challenging resources to receive here in Los Angeles. As we know, our city has an immense challenge. Los Angeles has always been the leading force in serving underserved communities and populations such as immigrant youth, and so we asked the city to work with the county to support this population and to create access to crucial services. So I think that we can together ensure that the residents and future residents have access to these crucial services. So thank you, Councilman O'Farrell, for championing.
Thanks, Jocelyn. Thank you. All right, Lauren Natoli, followed by Robert Chirila.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Lauren Natoli. I am from the AIDS Healthcare Foundation. I'm here today to express concern over the lack of concrete progress on Measure HHH housing units. We know that money is being spent and that at least one of the projects is complete, but we're hoping for more to be completed soon. Measure HHH was voted upon in 2016, and yet no housing units, or one housing unit has been completed. And by looking at the luxury apartments going up in my neighborhood, CD2, North Hollywood Arts District, and by the 4 hotels that AHF has renovated since 2017 for affordable housing, that if these housing units were a priority, they hopefully would have been completed by now. Please look into the funding for those. Thank you kindly.
Thank you. Just for the record, the vote was taken in the fall of 2016 for HHH. So out of whole cloth, we have 7,500 units of permanent supportive housing in the pipeline, funded, approved, many of the units being built. We'll have 1,400 open within 1 calendar year from right now. So we're making great progress, and we will get to that 10,000. But we've done pretty well in 2.5 years since the vote was taken, and with the generous support of voters in Los Angeles to create this only fund in the state that any city has created. So we look forward to working with all parties to see the success of HHH and house people who are experiencing homelessness in higher numbers than we ever have. So with that, we have Salvador Sanabria. Yeah, you know, your name just popped up, Salvador. So, Salvador, take a seat. Robert, I called you. So, no, Salvador, you can sit up here. There are 2 chairs. And then Robert, you go ahead first, and then Salvador.
Hello, my name is Robert Chirilla. I'm an LAUSD employee and volunteer with homeless outreach organization Koreatown for All. I'm here today to speak out in favor of increasing the amount of safe parking in the city that we have. As we all in this room, I'm sure know, and I'm sure feel not so great about, homelessness is up 16% in our city, and most of those people are not yet chronically homeless. Programs like safe parking can be a good temporary band-aid to keep those people from lapsing into chronic homelessness, which we all know is a lot harder to deal with. It's really hard to get those people housed because they develop other issues in addition to the homelessness. So yeah, safe parking, most importantly, alleviates a lot of suffering on our unhoused neighbors' part, but it also even alleviates a lot of the concerns of property owners in the area, if you want to take that perspective. If these people have places to go to the bathroom, if they have places they're receiving mental health care, you're going to have a lot less complaints from those people as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Salvador Sanabria.
Thank you, Councilmember Farrell. I'm here in representation of El Rescate. We are a nonprofit organization providing legal services to immigrants in the city of Los Angeles. And since 2014, we've been providing legal services to the unaccompanied minors population, mainly from Central America, but also from Mexico. So I'm here in support of the resolution, Council File 190777. And we think it is a critical need to provide more support and services to these communities, especially those that are homeless or in risk of being homeless. They not only need legal counsel, but they also need housing services and also psychological and emotional support services. Thank you very much. I have a letter here to be considered in the file of the city.
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll circulate that letter. Stephanie Lemus, followed by Xochitl Sanchez. Stephanie Lemus, followed by Xochitl Sanchez.
Good afternoon, council members. My comment is in regards to item 6. My name is Stephanie Lemus, and I'm the Director of Community Affairs and Advocacy at Clínica Monseñor Oscar Romero. Our mission is to provide quality, affordable, and culturally sensitive healthcare and other services to the underserved communities of the greater Los Angeles area, regardless of their ability to pay, by upholding the legacy and tradition of Monseñor Romero. We serve over 12,000 patients annually, and out of those 12,000 patients, over 1,300 are homeless. And out of those 1,300, over 160 are youth. For almost a year, in partnership with Salef, we have been working to address the needs of the Central American caravan across the border with humanitarian, medical, and legal services, and also to provide services to the newly arrived to our city. More accurate data must be collected on the number of unaccompanied youth that experience homelessness, as well as the effective interventions to end homelessness for unaccompanied youth. Clínica Romero asks that the city and county work together to better assist the surmounting needs of services that unaccompanied minors face. And I want to thank Councilmember Mitchell Farrell for your leadership and for utilizing it to protect the most vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Appreciate that. Xochitl Sanchez.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Xochitl Sanchez. I am an organizer with the Central American Resource Center in Los Angeles, CARECEN. We were funded by Central American refugees during the civil wars of the 1980, and now are the largest providers for legal and human services to the Central American community in the United States. I work specifically on the refugee project. Not only do we do advocacy in the Hill, but locally as well. We also lead and coordinate delegations of medical and legal services to Tijuana, and happen to have met, like some of my other colleagues already shared, met with unaccompanied minors in Tijuana, and sadly lost 2 of our kids who were murdered while they were waiting in line to pass over to the United States. This was in December of last year. So we're here to advocate for unaccompanied minors in Los Angeles, to be able to build more resources for them, knowing that this is a growing population. Nothing is going to stop migrants from Central America coming to this country until the violence that they're living in their home countries is addressed, not only by the home country, but allied countries and the United States, to be culpable for what it has done and be responsible for what it has done in those countries, as well as support it in a way that's holistic. So I want to thank you for the work that has been done, and again, here to reinstate that I'm in support of item 6, and we need more resources for unaccompanied minors, knowing that this is a growing population in the Los Angeles County.
Sochi, thank you, and thank you to the whole delegation from Salaf, from Clinica, for your tireless advocacy on this, and anyone who wants to join in the delegation on the trips to Tijuana. They take them regularly. I went in February. It's a real experience. It's highly valuable to make relevant this catastrophe at our border. So thank you for your work, because it's so relevant to the communities here in Los Angeles. We appreciate you being here today and giving voice to that. All right. Oh, we have a couple of more. All right. They're up here. All right. So we have Carla Miller and Charlie Peppers, and that will close the public comment for today. Carla Miller, followed by Charlie Peppers, and you're both welcome to come. There are 2 seats, so come on up.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for listening to us. Of course, you know my name. I'm a tenant at Kingswood Apartments, managed by the Michaels organization, and we recently were hit with an increase in our rent from between $200 to $500. We're 44 units, and most of our tenants are elderly and on fixed income. So we would like for someone to intervene.
I've spoken to George at your office extensively. He told me that you're also aware of our situation, so thank you for listening to us. We would just like acknowledgement that with this situation, if you could acknowledge that you're on the side of the residents, because many of us right now, we're already spending 80 to 100% of our income on rent before the increase, and this is done by an organization that purports to be for the community. You know, actually, yesterday, Carla, where was it that?
That's okay, because you're kind of made your comments, so continue for another 30 seconds, right? So you're in yours now.
Yes, we were actually at a rally, and Bernie Sanders heard about what was happening with our building, and he publicly acknowledged that he also wanted to help. We would like, because we've already organized ourselves within the building, and we're not just sitting on our hands, we're making our voices heard, and we've already made progress on bringing our concerns to the Michaels organization. We just need more elected officials who will be in our corner while we have this fight, because it is not right, it's egregious, and I just want to make sure that affordable housing and complexes that are getting a tax credit from the city are for the people and putting people over profits.
Thank you. And let me just say that I submitted a letter to the ownership group this morning. I've been briefed daily on the situation that you're in. And for everyone in the room, they're living under the extreme hardship and limitations from coast to Hawkins. Because the city of Los Angeles, because of state law, we are prohibited from adding to our rent stabilization ordinance inventory. That's why I went to Sacramento last month. That's why I'm going again next month with a larger delegation from LA, because we're advocating for a change in the state law. We have expiring covenants, we have structures built after 1978, and we are prohibited from including them in the RSO. And it's a real frustration for all of us, especially in this superheated real estate market, that we're prohibited because of a state law from adding units to that inventory. And so we'll work together on that, but I urge you to notify state assembly members, state senators, because Bernie Sanders can't do anything about it, I can't do anything about it, but the state can.
Okay.
And I'm dead serious about this. The other problem is the Ellis Act. It needs to be revised. It's real easy for someone who owns a multi-unit building, whether it's rent stabilized or not, to change the use. State law is very, very liberal about that. If you own a building, you can get out of the business. You can demolish the building. You can convert it to condominiums. It's happening across the city. So the state needs to act on both of those. Reform Ellis, reform Costa-Hawkins. So pay real close attention to that. In the meantime, we're working like the devil to get the new ownership of your building to be more reasonable. We know the hardship you're going through. So let's keep working together on that. And I appreciate you coming in and giving testimony.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for clarification, so you did send out a letter
Yes.
to the Michaels organization?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you bet. All right, that concludes public comments, so we'll take item number 1.
Item number 1, Homeless Strategy Committee Report relative to the State Homeless Emergency Aid Program, Second Quarterly Expenditure Report and Funding Recommendations.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Susie Rios-Balanat. I am a Senior Administrative Analyst in the CAO's office, and I'm here to present the second quarterly expenditure report on HEAP. So this is the 5th report on the city's state HEAP grant and the second report to provide the status of HEAP expenditures. This report provides the status of HEAP commitments to date. 73 million approximately has been committed as of June 30th, 2019, representing 86% of the total grant. A total of 11.9 million remains uncommitted in Category 2, approximately 11.6 million, and Category 4, about 200,000. The report also provides the second reporting of HEAP expenditures. We have spent $12.3 million as of 6/30/2019, representing 14% of the total grant. Respectively, that is 11.7 million from Category 1, 100,000 from Category 2, 330,000 from Category 3, and 120,000 from Category 5. I'd like to remind you that in our last report for expenditures through the first quarter of the year, we'd only spent $2.3 million. So this represents an over 10 million increase in spending just over 3 months. So we really are working hard to get those dollars out the door for this emergency program. The report also provides recommendations for the Skid Row HEAP motion that was introduced by Council District 14 on June 14th and corrected in the Homeless Strategy Committee by the Council District. So those recommendations total just over $4.1 million, and they include emergency housing at the Salvation Army in Skid Row, move-in expenses for 150 people in Skid Row, shower and bathroom access with attendance at LA Mission for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week operation, and extends the operating hours of the Gladys Park Pit Stop to also 24/7 operation. The report also provides recommendations to reprogram $325,000 from Category 4 to Category 1. I want to reassure you that the youth 5% minimum set-aside is still being met with this reprogramming, as shown in Table 2 on page 4 of the report. The report also provides recommendations for service funding for bridge home sites in Council District 15 and for contingency and construction funding for bridge home sites in Council District 10. The Homeless Strategy Committee, when they heard this report in July, amended the report to recommend that the city use the new anticipated state homeless housing assistance and prevention program funding instead of the general fund for these services, if possible, when the HAP funds become available. If all the recommendations in this report are approved, the HEAP commitments will total $77.2 million committed, representing 91% of the total grant, and $7.8 million remaining uncommitted in categories 2 and 4. Lastly, I do have an amendment. HCID has requested a technical correction to the recommendation 4 that you have in front of you to facilitate the contracting process with LASA for these new HEAP allocations. A copy of the amendment has been provided to the clerk, and I've been asked to read the language of the amendment into the record, so if you will bear with me.
Sure.
Replace recommendation 4 with the following language. Instruct the General Manager, Housing and Community Investment Department, HCID, or designee to amend the following contracts with the Los Angeles Homeless Services Agency to provide the following services and funding described in this report. A, C-133135, Homeless Emergency Aid Program Grant. $1.6 million for the Salvation Army to expand emergency housing for families experiencing homelessness. $1.5 million for the people concerned for move-in expenses for individuals experiencing homelessness for a 12-month term not to extend past June 30th, 2021. $700,000 to the LA Mission to expand shower and bathroom access for up to 22 months not to extend past June 30th, 2021. And $325,000.65 to people assisting the homeless for a bridge home operating costs at 515 North Beacon Avenue for a 12-month term not to extend past June 30th, 2021. 4B, contract number to be determined, City General Fund 2019-20, $1,870,999.35 to people assisting the homeless for a bridge home operating costs at 515 North Beacon Avenue for a 12-month term, and $2,196,000 to U.S. Vets for a bridge home operating costs at 828 Eubank Avenue for a 12-month term. That concludes the amendment and my summary of the report. I remain available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions that I have here, and then we'll open it up. Are all the operations for the approved bridge home projects fully funded? Meg Barkley?
Our ABH expert and City Homeless Coordinator. Good afternoon, Meg Barkley, City Homeless Coordinator in the Office of the CAO. For the projects that have capital funding, yes, we have funded all of those projects through June 30th, 2021. Excuse me?
I'm sorry, for Beacon and Eubank?
Oh, for Beacon and Eubank.
HSC actually amended the report to recommend only 12 months funding, so that funding will not necessarily go through June 30th, 2021, but it is for a minimum of 12 months.
So have to reauthorize funding for that.
So when that was to preserve, the only source at this time we have left for the Bridge Home Program is the $9 million that was approved in the 1920 budget. So that was to preserve as much of that general fund for other projects as they come forward to stay available until the HAP grant is available to the city. At the time that the HAP grant is provided, we can swap out the general fund that was approved at this time for Beacon and Eubank and then take that site all the way to the same ending date as the other sites.
Thank you. Is there any update on the second round of HEAP, which is now HAP, and I still can't tell you what that stands for, HHAP, from the state? And when do we anticipate news on the second round?
So we're hoping to have additional guidance in late September, I believe, from the state. They are working on the nitty-gritty details. The legislation has been adopted, but the interpretation of some of those items is still, I think, getting sorted out between the governor's office and the state agencies coordinating the funding.
Okay. Do we know what HHAPP stands for?
Yes,
Homeless housing?
Homeless, I have it written.
Oh, good.
Otherwise, I would not be able to tell you. Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program.
Okay. That sounds better than the acronym, actually.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. All right, colleagues. Mr. Bonin.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. Thanks for the work on this, as always. We have more needs than we have funds, but we keep getting more funds, but we keep having a greater need.
That's true.
A month or so ago, a number of us participated in a big press conference where we said, oh, we're doing cleanups differently. We're going to be doing more showers and more bathrooms and pilot programs where people can clean up their own encampments. I don't see any of that funded yet. That funding for those things apparently coming from the HAP?
That, I believe that is part of the discussion that's happening right now around there. As you recall, there was a planning process for the HAP funds, or for the HEAP funds the last time around, and I would imagine that would be a large consideration as it relates to HAP. One thing that we are working with the state on, though, is to clarify the eligible uses for HAP are much more restrictive than those of the HEAP grant. So, for example, emergency aid, which was the category that we used to define the hygiene services last time around, is not explicitly listed as an eligible use this time around, but we are working with the state to figure, it does also depend on how the administering agency is going to interpret those eligible uses and whether they would interpret other eligible uses within, as it's currently defined, to include hygiene services. We will have some options. There are also, we will have some options relative to, there are HAP eligible items we currently have funded with HEAP that we could swap to free up HEAP, which is more flexible, to use for hygiene services. It'll be a little, financial gymnastics, but we're looking at all the options to make sure that we could maintain and expand those hygiene services.
But just to put a fine point on it, to date, we do not have an identified source of funding for the hygiene service stuff that is sort of the backbone of the care teams.
Right. Okay. Not yet, no. Except for the funding that has been identified and approved for the sanitation teams.
Okay. All right, thank you. And we won't have any further clarity until at least early September. That seems to be.
Our hope is we would hear in September, yes.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
All right. Colleagues? No? All right, thank you. So we'll adopt the report as amended that you read fully, and that'll be the order without objection.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Done. Thank you. And Ms. Amatia, this brings us to item number 3.
Item number 3, motion O'Farrell Krikorian relative to a summit on poverty, including key stakeholders to discuss and collaborate on strategies to prevent and alleviate poverty.
Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, council members. Abigail Marquez, Assistant General Manager with the Housing and Community Investment Department. And I'll let Jomana. I'm Jomana Silian Saba with HSID, Commissions and Community Engagement. We want to thank you, Councilmember O'Farrell, and members of this committee for the opportunity to engage in further dialogue with you around issues that address the root causes of homelessness, that are looking at income inequality and poverty alleviation in the city of Los Angeles. We're working with your office, Councilmember O'Farrell, to host a poverty summit next month on September 20th. We intend to bring together a number of different city departments, private sector, different stakeholders to begin to explore opportunities to further enhance programs that we already have in place that are potentially scalable, where there's additional gaps in services that we can explore. We will be producing a report that we will bring back to this committee with recommendations that you can consider. And we again, our goal is to address the issues of households and individuals and families that are living in the shadows. We hear time and time again about the families who are severely rent burdened. We have over 700,000 households in LA that are rent burdened. The point in time count that LAHSA just released talks about over 50% of individuals cited economic hardship as one of the reasons that they fell into homelessness. So we're really trying to address some of those root causes and identify intervention and prevention strategies to reduce homelessness and alleviate poverty. So Jomana on my team has been spearheading the coordination of the summit, and she'll walk through some of the outcomes that we've identified and some of the speakers and invitees as well. Thank you, Abigail. Good afternoon. Wanted to thank you, Councilmember O'Farrell, for your leadership on this and your partnership. I very briefly want to highlight some of the goals and objectives. As Abigail mentioned, this is really an effort to demonstrate the city leadership around issues on poverty prevention and alleviation. So in outlining our objectives, it's to raise awareness around existing city services that are being offered to mitigate the effects of poverty, but also to explore gaps, barriers, and the need for comprehensive policies.
We're also using the summit as a launching pad. We're really looking at the summit to be a space where we can have a meaningful exchange and we can have a meaningful conversation around innovative solutions. And so our audience for this summit are really diverse stakeholders to include government partners, including our county partners, private sector, businesses, tech companies, philanthropy, community organizations, service providers, as well as policymakers and experts. And so the way the summit is designed is to bring these various multiple experts and multi-dimension conversations into one space. We're also strategically partnering with academic and research institute to produce a blueprint, which ultimately is a set of recommendations specifically to the city, but it's also using the summit as a launching pad in the blueprint, really positioning us to have a more regional strategy in terms of how we prevent poverty. So while we're city focused, we're also working with the aim to work regionally. We are currently planning the summit, obviously working with Councilmember O'Farrell and his team, and I wanted to thank you again and to thank your team because they have been amazing. But we're also working with a number of other partners on this. Certainly our commissions have been incredible in this effort. I want to specifically mention members of our committee, which include commissions from the Commission on Community and Family Services, CCFS, and I want to point out that Commissioner Hawthorne is here with us, and this particular commission has been a champion. They are mandated to advise the city on poverty prevention. We also have the Community Action Board members, and they're members of the Planning Committee. We have USC, their Innovation Lab is part of our Planning Committee, and we're also working with our EWDD and the WIB, who will also be contributing to our planning as well. So with that, I'm going to leave it here, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but this kind of gives you an overview of what our goals and objectives are. The summit itself is not sort of the panel usual setting of a summit. It's rather having key speakers, but the vast majority of the day is actually engaging the stakeholders in the conversation around solutions and collecting data information to inform the strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's hold for a moment until this interruption clears. Let's just wait a moment. Yeah. You can take it outside, Mr. Herman. Take it on out. Take it on out. Let's close that door. Thanks, Sergeant.
Councilman.
Thank you, Sergeant. All right.
Councilman O'Farrell,
Yes.
I just wanted to also add that part of our report will also identify programs and initiatives and strategies that other cities have explored and or implemented for the city council and the mayor to consider as part of a potential initiative that we can implement here in Los Angeles.
Terrific, terrific. Great to hear. And Commissioner Hawthorne, is that right? Welcome. Thank you so much for being part of this. As a commissioner, volunteering your time because you care so deeply and your talents, so we appreciate that. I love everything that both of you just said, and thank you. My staff is working very diligently, very hard to make this successful. I love the regional strategy, because we sometimes forget, well, I don't know if we forget, but we're not cognizant that people don't really care about council district lines or city of LA lines. They just care about their neighborhoods, and everything else is kind of abstract. So the regional approach, the regional economy, the county, the region, that really is the approach we should take. We've had some pre-meetings that we've conducted, and what's interesting about this, in terms of where you're going with putting together an action plan that we could perhaps address legislatively, policy-wise, it's a little different than when we hire a consultant to give the city council or a report that sometimes we don't ever do anything with. That happens a lot. But what's different here, I feel, is that we're involved. A lot of us will be at the summit. The mayor will be there. I'll be there all day. And other lawmakers will be there all day. So I think that the timing is really perfect to focus, for the first time since I've been on the council, in a real comprehensive way on the fundamentals of poverty, its root causes, how poverty is what adds to the displacement crises that we're facing, how when we talk about economic investment and in our neighborhoods and development and growth, too often the byproduct is displacement. So how do we address those issues of helping to increase wealth in our neighborhoods while not displacing anyone, right? So sort of prospering in place, if you will. And we have to figure that out. And that's really what I'm trying to get to the bottom of with this Poverty Summit. And it really is all about 100% productive discussions. And I want the word to go out far and wide that if someone shows up just to grab a microphone and complain about everything, not the summit for you. It'll be a series of panel discussions, solution-oriented from our friends in labor, our friends in private industry, employers, everyone. And I think that is the baseline that we start with, and just see where it goes. I'm optimistic. We've now had, as I mentioned earlier, 2.5 years of HHH. We're doing all we can to stop the bleeding. Now it's time to focus on, as we get more of these permanent supportive housing units online, as we try to do all that we can with our rent-stabilized ordinance, and maybe at some point add it to that inventory, all these different measures that we're focusing on to keep people housed and in their neighborhoods, that we can now focus on jobs, economic growth, development, education, training, involve our community colleges as we have never done to the extent that I think we should. So I'm really excited about this summit, and it's in really just a month and a half away. Not even. It's, just a little over a month away. But we're going to be ready, and it's going to be really, I think, eye-opening. And you've helped us set the parameters, and we really appreciate your work on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It sounds like the funding's not an issue at this point, but you'll let us know as that becomes more clear in terms of the resources you need in the short term. But do we have an estimate on what the cost might be?
We had an initial estimate, but the list of potential participants has increased, and so we're doing that additional assessment now.
Okay.
We also have been talking to some potential private sponsors that are very interested in supporting the work, either the summit and or the research that we want to commission as part of the summit. But we can circle back with your office on the finer details of the budget.
Wonderful. And I think it's a good ask to have participants bring their own resources that they can bring to the table as well to help us have a successful summit. So. Thank you. Colleagues, Mr. Rue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I think this is a great idea. And I just wanted to ask, so there's going to be a lot of panel discussions. Will there be breakout sessions as well?
Yes. Yes. So the agenda for the day is going to have, the morning will have 2 panels. The first panel is going to be sharing personal stories. So we are envisioning having 4 people tell their stories, youth, somebody from the LGBT community, people who are most impacted by poverty, but also looking at seniors, parents, single parents, to tell their own stories. And it's through these very personal stories that will frame the rest of our day. The second panel following that will be talking about trajectory of poverty. What is data telling us, and where are we moving with this trajectory, and how we define poverty, but also how we measure poverty. Because poverty is experienced differently, and the definitions of poverty apply differently, particularly for us in LA. So that panel will explore numbers and data. The rest of the day is designed as working groups. And so participants in the conference will be assigned to tables, and so each table will have multiple people coming from various areas of expertise to the subject, and they will be engaged through a facilitated discussion, but also working with our academic partners. We have developed a process design that will walk us through the rest of the day in a way that will allow us to collect data, information that can then be translated into the recommendations as to what we envision in the report. So the vast majority of the day is that very hands-on, innovative thinking.
So the audience is not necessarily the public, but it's industry professionals who are working on poverty issues and homeless issues and mental health issues.
It's a little bit of both. So it'll be by invite. And as I mentioned, the individuals that we want at the table are certainly, as Councilmember O'Farrell mentioned, the private sector businesses, the philanthropy. We have not really engaged those conversations, but obviously our service providers, our community partners, government, and policy experts.
Great, and obviously the agenda is being formed as we speak. So
yes, we do have a draft.
I'd love to participate, and in particular, there's one particular issue that I was trying to get a group together on, and I think it fits right in line with the summit. And if I could work with your staff as well as your office, I'd like to do like a breakout session on. We're talking a lot about involuntary treatment, expansion of conservatorship in respects to treatment and mental health portion of that, where the city has partnered with the county to help change state law. But I would really like to really hone in on not just the global issues, but specific issues, especially with Los Angeles Police Department, outreach workers, practitioners on the ground on actual implementation and barriers. So even before the law changes, maybe there's something we can do here at the city level to start addressing that one issue. So that's one panel that I really like to work on and something that I've been working on for almost a decade.
We definitely work together and incorporate some of those into the afternoon breakout sessions as we talk about gaps, but also solutions as to where we bridge those. So be more than happy to work with you on that.
And it's likely this won't be the only. I just, based on the feeling I'm getting, is that it might be a series that we end up doing. But it's got to be productive. And I think the more productive it is, the more we'll do, certainly as we get somewhere with it.
Yeah, we definitely want to leverage work that is already happening, conversations that will be happening after the summit to be better coordinated. We also want to acknowledge that there is a lot of work that the city through various departments are doing, but there is a need for stronger coordination and to leverage the different resources that are available. So that's part of the conversation as well.
Mm-hmm. Terrific. Thank you. Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Bonin, no, we're good. Thank you so much.
You.
So we'll approve the report and instruct the COA, I think CAO, and HCID to identify and fill any gaps in funding necessary to effectuate the intent of this motion. Yeah. Thank you. And colleagues, I don't know if I did this or not, but items 2 and 4 on consent, if there are no objections. I don't remember if I did that or not. And then that will take us to item 5, safe parking motion.
Item number 5, motion Bonin O'Farrell relative to the monthly status report on the implementation of the safe parking program in the city, including the number of operational lots, success rate of local service providers in recruiting clients for the lots, the number of people currently being served, and the number of people successfully housed.
And who do we have from LASA here? Oh, there we go. Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority to report on this motion.
Good afternoon, council members. Paul Duncan, Acting Director of Procurement and Performance Management at LASA. We recently released an RFP for safe parking, which I feel addresses some of the concerns and issues brought up within this motion, and really what does it take to effectively operate a safe parking program, and some of the lessons that have been learned over some of the initial safe parking programs that have launched within the city of Los Angeles. Some of the key things that we are finding is around how we are developing and building programs. Largely the first several or handful of programs that launched to do safe parking were really built off of leveraging of existing services within our system. What we have found is that most of the services that are existing have already been stretched and leveraged to the maximum capacity. So when, say, parking providers were reaching out to, the other homeless service providers to see what can be brought into the programs as far as, coming in, providing additional case management, the screening, they were to a point where they were already serving so many people that it was hard to do that. So in the RFP, really addressing that case management needs to be a part of the program funding as we move forward and really look at, say, parking, and really how do we build cost effectiveness into our program, so ensuring that the lots that we are operating are big enough to create a cost effectiveness to where we can bring in that case management without having programs that look so expensive on paper when you break down the number of cars being served within one of those lots. As far as reporting and providing how, say, parking programs are going, they are within HMIS. There has been some challenges around data entry, but we can really try to focus on that and bring in the data that we are seeing within the homeless management information system entered by the Safe Parking program. So that is one thing that we are able to do, is bring forward the data that we are seeing, and we can differentiate some of the outcomes with the different models that have been set up to date and where we are seeing success versus where we are seeing some of those challenges, and having those conversations.
So I'm going to turn this over to Mike Bonin in just a moment, because he's the mover of this motion and it's really important. You mentioned the RFP was released and you're currently evaluating applications.
Awards were made by the LAHSA Commission at July's LAHSA Commission meeting. So,
based on your recommendations?
Yes, that is an additional 11 safe parking programs that will open up in the county, the majority of those being in the city, but we could get you a specific breakdown.
Ballpark, how many spaces in all is that? Are those 11 sites?
It's about 300 spaces for safe parking.
Okay, all right. Mr. Bonin, I'll turn it over to you since you're the mover of this motion, and then we'll continue the conversation.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Appreciate you scheduling this, and I appreciate LAHSA coming forward on it. Let me explain why I put this motion in. I've been advocating safe parking since 2008 or 9 when I worked for Bill Rosendahl, when we went up to Santa Barbara and saw what they were doing there. It took a freaking long time to get it legal here. It took a long time for the city attorney to say you could do what other jurisdictions do. And then it took us a while to actually get the damn thing going. And it's been in place. I've got 3 in my district, 1 at the VA, 1 at my West LA office, 1 at my Westchester office. And I put this motion in after spending a couple hours talking to the people who were staying in my West LA lot. And I've gone over the past year from impatience to frustration to really being pissed off with the implementation of this program, to be honest. The reason is I spoke to a woman who's been in that lot for 6 months, and at least when I spoke to her a few weeks ago, she had not been entered into the coordinated entry system yet. And I don't, there is nothing that LAHSA can say that will make me comfortable with that or think that's acceptable. To add insult to injury, I made room for LAHSA staffers in my West LA office and in my Westchester office, so the outreach workers would be there. Now, they don't work the same hours, but we did it so that it would be easier for LAHSA folks to be able to intersect, because there were problems getting our spa lead to do what we expected them to do under the stretch that you're talking about. I do not get how this program, which was meant to be not warehousing, but a place that would transition people from vehicles to homes, how it is stagnating the way it is. I don't know how somebody can be in there for a matter of weeks. If they're ever there every night and not get entered into the CES system, I'm asking them, what are people doing to help you? And she's like, well, I'm still not in CES. And I know she's not in CES. She's not getting anything. She's not going to get a voucher. And everyone in there, I mean, most of them are still working. it just baffles me. These should be the easiest people for us to help. Some folks who don't want to acknowledge they're homeless and they're living in their car, a little bit more of a challenge. But the people I'm talking about are people who are living in their car. They're desperate to get into housing again. They've had some bumps in the roads, and I don't know how that we're in this place. So the reason I asked for this report is one of my biggest ongoing frustrations with LAHSA, and I've said this for a year before Mr. O'Farrell was chair, is lack of metrics. And I told LAHSA when we were coming up with the coordinated strategy and the funding, I'm going to be your best friend for funding. And then when it comes to implementation, I'm going to be a pain in the ass. Because I knew there were going to be problems in implementation. And on this, what I'm looking for really is metrics, so we can hold LAHSA accountable. Once a month, each of us gets a report from LAPD. How many Part 1 crimes, how many Part 2 crimes, how many arrests. What I'm looking for from LAHSA is very simple. How many people are enrolled in the program? How many people who are enrolled are new? How many have been entered into CES? How many have been successfully placed? I'm not looking for a big elaborate thing. I'm just looking for some simple metrics so we can hold you guys accountable. And I really, really, really want to hear that we're getting the damn people in these lots at least into the coordinated entry system. Particularly when I've made space for LAHSA employees. It's just, this is just sort of basic low-hanging fruit, and it just drives me nuts that we haven't grabbed it.
We can definitely report back on a monthly basis around those, basic metrics. So that is one thing that we will start reporting on a monthly basis so that you guys have what's happening with those metrics. So we'll speak to your office and make sure we are clear and we, are identifying all the metrics that you're looking to see out of this and have that conversation.
And by the end of the month, would it be possible to get the folks in the lots at my offices entered into CES?
I will talk to the Nathaniel, our director of outreach, to make sure that our co-located staff are setting up times to make sure that everybody is assessed and entered into the coordinated entry system.
I mean, the other half of this, I should quibble on my head, but the other half of this is that I know from the folks I'm talking to that Safe Parking LA is winding up doing the intake. The gentleman from Public Counsel has referred folks to lots because the CES system or the SPA that we have set up isn't referring folks into the system. Like we have in my district, the SPA lead just isn't set up to be doing to outreach people in their vehicles, so they're not catching them. And for a while, we had Safe Parking LA trying to follow the rules, saying, okay, you need to talk to, in this case, St. Joseph Center in order to get in here. And it was like saying, it had the effect of saying, go away. Mm-hmm. And I'm eager for report backs separately on how the hell that can be fixed, because that makes no sense. We've got Safe Parking LA doing the yeoman's work of operating the lots, providing the security, providing the insurance, and we're making their job harder and asking them to be caseworkers, which they're not.
I'm going to give two reasons of why it's so important to enact exactly what Mr. Bonin is suggesting. Number one, our care team program begins next month. If we're not working in concert with LAHSA as we service people who live in their motorhomes or cars on their streets where they live, then we're not helping to solve the problem at all. So it's imperative that LAHSA work in concert on the CES in relation to the care teams, and that's launching next month. So I don't know if there's been any conversations, but we need to make sure that there's a system in place. And if there isn't, then I'm happy to host a meeting with sanitation and LAHSA this week, next week, so that there's no gap in lost opportunities there. The other piece is that I'm going up to Sacramento and I'm basically demanding a $1.2 billion match from the state for HHH. And I'm, taking the message that we are producing and we have our act together. But if I can't even say, by the way, our safe parking program is buttoned up too, and here's how that's working well for us. it's going to make it harder for people who scrutinize everything we do to want to give us additional or provide additional resources as we make our case for that. So we need to really be operating on all cylinders on this. And I want to just pivot to another issue with the RFP situation. I don't know the exact requirements of the RFP because I haven't seen what they are. However, we know that the Los Angeles City College application was rejected, and they have 200 spaces for homeless students and their families ready to go with a facility that they decided not to demolish that's providing showers and lockers. That's 200 spaces, and their application was just rejected outright because they asked for too much money, because they asked for a huge chunk of the entire budget. My question would be, why didn't you simply respond back to them saying, hey, we can't possibly give you this size of a grant, but reapply and improve your chances by following these instructions? They have a secure spaces and the facilities for hygiene for homeless students. I can't think of a better match, and they're ready to go, but their application was just rejected outright. So I don't expect you to be accountable to that reasoning right now to me, but take a look at your RFP process and see if there might be opportunities that LAHSA could take better advantage of, especially when an entity is providing all the resources and all you need to do is approve and provide the adequate amount of funding. Because they might very well say, okay, well, I'll tell you what, we can lower our application request and we can get private funders to match us. Instead, they were just rejected outright with no rationale, except for they were asking for too much money. And the other thing I want to know is we've been working for over a year on a safe parking site in Echo Park. I keep hearing that it's about to be approved, it's about to go, it's about to go. We have another perfect situation where it's the library next to a church, and we're ready to go with it. So if you could follow up on where that is.
Yeah, we just finished our agreement with the library, so I will check in with the team and we can get a report to you.
So that one's a go. That would be our
Should
second.
be ready to go. Okay. We just finalized our agreement with the library, so I'm being able to use.
I think that maybe in terms of safe parking, you have to sort of leave the proverbial outside the box thinking, or you have to actually engage in outside of the box thinking, especially when you have entities ready, willing, and leaning in to get in the game on safe parking. And we have to figure out that hurdle. And so if you could report back, or I'm instructing you to report back on the resources you need. Is it that you're staffing up so quickly and people haven't had a chance to get the proper training to get people in Mike's parking lot in the CES system because they don't know how to yet, or it's chaotic because everyone's drinking out of a fire hose because everything's so new? We need some answers on why we can't be more nimble right now when we need to be nimble the most. I think that's the important thing.
All right, we can report back on that.
Okay, terrific. Anything else, Mr. Bonin?
Thank you very much.
Sure. So what we'll do is, since we've lost quorum because both Ms. Rodriguez and Mr. Rue had appointments they had to go to, this will be instructions from the chair, but we'll request Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority to prepare and submit a quarterly report, but we have the relationship. I think please report monthly for the next several months, and I think we'll organize a meeting with you in advance of the care team rollout. That's really, I feel like there's some missing pieces there that we need to figure out. Request that LAHSA report on their internal procedure on requests for proposals and procedures for formulating the RFP so we can be more nimble, and how the evaluators of the RFP are chosen and the criteria for the scoring. Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Bonin?
No, monthly to start is fine. I'll probably continue to want monthly for at least the ones in my district.
Yeah.
Because I'll be looking at them like a hawk.
Yeah, terrific. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Duncan, and we'll look forward to working with you on that. All right, and then we can go. That takes us to the next item, item 6.
Item number 6, motion O'Farrell Wesson relative to the analysis of policies to address homelessness amongst unaccompanied homeless immigrant minors and recommendations to address the matter in light of the 2019 point-in-time count of homeless individuals and the federal government's purposeful policy to separate immigrant children from their families.
Mr. Chair, just for the record and for clarification, item number 5 will move as a communication from chair and member.
Yes. Yeah, communication from chair. Thank you. So you heard the testimony from El Rescate, from Salaf, from Clinica Romero earlier on item 6, and they really said it better than I ever could, but there are many immigrant serving organizations that reside in my district and beyond it, and you heard from some of them. We also work with Covenant House. I think all of us work with nonprofits that offer lodging and resources to homeless youth, and we have plenty of unaccompanied minors among that population that we don't even know or realize, but they're out there. Now, we're working closely with Hilda Solis's office to ensure there's proper collaboration because that work is essential, and the only certified the certified organization, the certified location for these funds is Casa Libre. And we understand that Salaf is taking over the operations of the unaccompanied minor piece of that. They've had their issues, and we're comfortable in working with Hilda Solis's office to see that they deal with those issues and mitigate them, but they're the only licensee that we can actually choose for this purpose. So this will be instruction, communication from the chair as well, to direct the Housing and Community Investment Department in coordination with Los Angeles County Office of Immigrant Affairs and with the assistance of the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority to report with an analysis of housing and shelter needs facing unaccompanied minors in Los Angeles that have been held in federal custody through the Office of Refugee Resettlement, and request that the county, Los Angeles County Office of Immigrant Affairs advise the city on steps that the city and county can take to better coordinate services for this population. And that'll be communication from the chair. Thank you. And with that, I believe we have no other items. Is that right? Okay. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.